Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of Conversations on the Couch. I'm Dr. Danielle. Today is a bit of a continuation of my episode with Dr. Jade, where we talked about celebrity culture and cognitive dissonance. I wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page and we had a good understanding of what cognitive dissonance is, what it means, and how it might show up in our everyday lives. So grab a drink, a snack, whatever it is that you need to feel comfortable, and join me on the couch. Now that we're all settled in, let's talk about cognitive dissonance. In the 1950s, Leon Festinger developed the cognitive dissonance theory. Cognitive dissonance is defined as the mental discomfort, anguish, turmoil, however you want to put it, that a person feels when they have two or more conflicting beliefs, values, or attitudes. This is particularly troublesome when those beliefs, attitudes, and values do not align with their actions. As human beings, we love when things are balanced. We love when things make sense, and we certainly love when we don't feel discomfort. The moment that our beliefs, values, and actions become misaligned and that discomfort or cognitive dissonance happens, we try to do things to shift so that we are back in a balanced state, we're back to equilibrium, and things make sense again. This is important because how one deals with the mental discomfort or cognitive dissonance that shows up in our lives really tells a tale about the path that we will go at. So I want us to talk a little bit more about the ways that cognitive dissonance might show up that you may not be aware is cognitive dissonance, and the ways that we have historically dealt with them, and appropriate ways that might be a little bit healthier for our lives and our relationships. Something else to consider is the cognitive dissonance gap, or dissonance gap for short. It is the degree of inconsistency a person feels between their beliefs and their actions. This gap is very person specific, and it depends on what values the person holds. So for example, if you are someone who holds honesty as a really important value, when you lie, your dissonance gap is pretty wide. Comparatively, if there's a person who does not hold honesty as something that is important to them, and they lied, their cognitive dissonance gap is going to be much smaller because it's closer or in alignment with who they are and how they see themselves. The bigger the gap, the greater the intensity of the discomfort. So that means greater anxiety, greater depression, greater sadness, greater confusion. All of those things are going to be felt more intensely because the gap is wider, and it means that your values are over here and the way that you behave is all the way out of frame, right? So as human beings, we don't like feeling uncomfortable. We don't like things being imbalanced, or not aligned with who we are and how we see the world. So we have to close the gap, right? Make sure that our values or beliefs and the way that we act are in close alignment. And there are very specific ways in which we do them. Some of them, not the healthiest, but we'll talk about those, and we'll also talk about some other ways that might be a little bit more adaptive in getting us to close the gap. So let's get into those next. Let's talk about some real-life examples of cognitive dissonance. The first one you may have heard before because it is frequently used to speak about cognitive dissonance. It's the example of the person who really values good health and believes that smoking is bad or harmful, but they also smoke. One of the ways that they might close the gap or ease the discomfort of the cognitive dissonance is to say, well, smoking is a stress reliever and chronic stress is really bad for your health. So I'm trying to do something to help with my health regardless. Another example is one of that I frequently hear with my clients, and it's in relation to productivity and procrastination. So the client may hold the belief that productivity is really important to them, getting things done, meeting deadlines, really important, but they may behave in procrastination, which then kind of slows down the productivity. In order to deal with the discomfort of the misalignment between value and action, they usually tell me, I work better under stress. I do my best work at the 11th hour. Not really considering or thinking about the stress and anxiety that they endure while they're procrastinating, because it goes against their value of productivity. Another example, and this one in the workplace, is a company's mission statement might say that they value diversity, equity, and inclusion, or areas related to DEI, and then they don't hire candidates to or employees to reflect that mission statement. And to ease the dissonance, incongruency with what they say is their mission and what they actually do, they may say things like, well, there aren't a lot of these DEI candidates applying to the job, or that they are not qualified and they're only hiring people who are qualified for the position. And if they were qualified, then absolutely they would hire them. A final example that I think a lot of us have come into contact with in the last few months and maybe several years, if we're being honest, is in the political realm. Now, a person might hold certain values, such as being able to be autonomous, right, to make their own decisions and be a good person, right? And perhaps there's a candidate that does not actually align with those values, but the person votes for them anyway. In order to ease the discomfort, close the gap, the person might say, well, you know what? Taxes and tax cuts are really important to me. So we're just going to ignore what's happening over here, and we're just going to focus on this one policy while not looking at the rest of it, right? And those are some real life examples of how cognitive dissonance might show up. And I'm wondering if there are ways that you engage in cognitive dissonance, and maybe you'd like to share them in the comments below. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are and how you think about cognitive dissonance in your own life. There are a few ways that people tend to deal with cognitive dissonance, and I'm going to mix in the good and the not so good ways so that I don't keep you here too long. One way to deal with the discomfort that comes up when there is a misalignment between our beliefs and our actions is to change the behavior or the action. So, quick example, if you're a person that believes that smoking is unhealthy for you and you have been smoking, to change the dissonance, you would stop smoking and perhaps adopt some healthier options in your life as well. Another way that people deal with the cognitive dissonance, which is not ideal, is to focus only on information that confirms their belief while disregarding information that might be contrary to their belief. So they may focus on a particular news channel or speak only to a friend that has the same exact beliefs as them so that they don't have to encounter anything that might go against what they believe. Therefore, their actions can kind of feel like, I'm not doing anything wrong. This person has confirmed that this is the right thing to do. So we have to be mindful about where we're getting our information and how open we are to various dialogues and opinions about what might be going on, and to be receptive that sometimes we aren't in the right, and that's okay. We are aiming to get things right not to be right. I think another one is to rationalize the way that we are behaving, minimizing our contributions to things. So this kind of downplaying of the effect of what we're doing. So if a person values honesty and they lie, they may rationalize it by saying, well, it's just a white lie. It's not really going to hurt anybody. It's not like I'm lying about this really, really big thing. It's only about where I was last Thursday. And it's not going to matter if this person knows that or not, right? So that's another way of really downplaying or rationalizing the cognitive dissonance. Sometimes people feel challenged by the cognitive dissonance that they encounter or experience, so they change their beliefs, which is not the best thing to do. So if a person feels really strongly about climate change or the environment, but they have to fly a lot or frequently for work, then they may say, I'm just one person. My carbon footprint isn't that big of a deal. One person is not going to make that much of a change on the environment, right? So shifting their beliefs about the importance or the important role that they play in protecting the environment because work forces them to engage in a way that creates that cognitive dissonance. I really want you to think again about how cognitive dissonance shows up in your life and the ways that you try to navigate it. We have to be self-reflective, to think about the roles that we are playing in our lives, the information that we're taking in, how open we are to other people's opinions and discourse, and actually focusing on truth and fact and evidence of things rather than just being kind of stuck in our own perspective and wanting to be right all the time. Use the dissonance, use the discomfort as a guide or a communication to say that there's something here that needs to be explored, to be curious about. I experienced cognitive dissonance a lot. I talked about it in my episode with Dr. Jade. You can see it happening real time when I'm speaking about, well, I really like this person's music, and can I like their music and also have it go against how I feel about intimate partner violence, right? And you can see me kind of struggling with trying to figure that out in real time. Think about how you are having these conversations with people. This episode is not about judging you or having you feel bad about the cognitive dissonance. It's just describing a phenomenon that happens and also encouraging you to think about how you address it when it happens. And if there are ways to make it a healthier, more pleasant experience, maybe not comfortable, then that's what this conversation is about. I hope that you found value in this episode, and I hope to hear your thoughts about it. Remember to leave your comments below about what experiences of cognitive dissonance you've had. I'd love to hear them. All right. I think that that's a good place for us to wrap up cognitive dissonance. If you have any additional questions, comments, thoughts, please share them. I would love to hear your feedback, to know how I'm doing, if you're finding it helpful, or if there's even something that I missed that you wanted to add to the conversation. Remember, this episode and all the things that you find on this channel are not meant to replace a wonderful, healthy, caring, safe relationship with a mental health clinician. If you're interested in starting that process and that journey, I can certainly add some links below to let you know where you can get support for these things. Just reach out and ask, and I'll be happy to provide that. Again, don't let the conversation end here. Be sure to share with your friends and family so that we can keep this rolling. Wishing you all the best. Be well, and I'll see you next time on the couch.